All right, here we go, boys.
So the war within Season 1 LFG for Mythic Plus is pretty much really quiet, and it hasn't been so quiet in LFG Mythic Plus in a long while. And today in this video, I want to talk about why and how Blizzard can actually fix Mythic Plus for Season 2 and beyond for the war within.
Because let's
face it, Mythic Plus and Season 1 just isn't enjoyable. I've made a very comprehensive list of all the things I think Blizzard should address, and this video is not meant to be a criticism of Blizzard. I actually think that since the dark days of Shadowlands, you have been listening to the community, and this is the reason why it's worth the trouble putting together a video like this, with clearly timestamp sections, as well as notes on screen that you can follow. So hopefully...
I love this though. Like, we have clear timestamps and notes on screen, so Blizzard... take fucking notes, you know, like, watch the video. Like, I already chewed it out for you, like, how I can make it, like, better. So please, you know, like, listen to it. I fucking love it.
When the war within Season 2 rolls around, you can actually look at some of these issues
let's
that
pretend
are
that
not
they
only brought up
listen.
by me, but also brought up by my community and the broader M Plus community in terms of what needs to change in Mythic Plus and why it feels bad right now. I know some of you are listening, especially those who have, you know, we have had a sidebar about this, but I hope this video will be way more helpful just based on the timestamp sections. So let's dive right in. So the first big issue has got to do with gearing being absolutely broken. One of the first things to consider is whether Valor Stones is even necessary as a currency. I think if you remove Valor Stones today, nobody would really mind. Maybe let it
I would be happy
for the lowest item tracks only, the ones on the lowest item tracks. Beyond that, you don't need Valor Stones as a currency because you already have Crest. Alternatively, increase the Valor Stone cap or allow us to transfer Valor Stones from other warband characters.
Very valid points.
Warbands for a reason, you might as well let us use it. The Crest drop rate is absolutely terrible. I think you need to drop more Crest per key at a baseline level. As of 5th of December 2024, you need to do 98 Mythic Plus keystones if you have a fresh ult at +8 or higher to cap all your gilded crest. If you ask,
imagine that you are Jimmy, you finally come out of your job, you know, like you have your full-time job working at the factory, you come home, wife has dinner on the table, you know, it's like, Jimmy, food, and then you read about you having to do another 98 +8 keys in order to also get ready for the raid because your raid leader is DMing you like, are you already geared? You know, like, no, just nobody likes this. Poor Jimmy. I know, right? Like, poor Jimmy, bro. Jimmy needing to do 98 M+ keys to keep up for his raid leader because he's DMing him while his wife is bitching, moaning about like him always being at work, never having time to spend with her, you know, and how she's gonna leave Jimmy and take the kids with him because like he's never able to play and he has raids in the evenings, work during the day. Jimmy is just fucked, you know? Poor Jimmy, bro. Poor Jimmy. All right.
I need to play 98 Mythic Plus keys before I can catch up in terms of gear.
I know, Mitch.
Quit the season and go play in Season 2 instead. It's just too much work to
catch up
on our ults.
Grab your stuff and go to keys.
Let's say gilded Crest drop rates on our ults as well. The Crest discount achievement for ults is absolutely just nonsense. The Harbinger achievement for gilded at 639 eye level in every single slot in order to have discounted gilded crest for my ults is really dumb because
he's just jealous because he doesn't have the achievement, bro. I'm just saying. No, but for real though, like this is ridiculous. Like he's right. 639 in every slot is not going to be feasible for anyone who isn't like an absolute cutting edge masterpiece raider type of deal. Like if you're not a raider that raids with a very serious guild, and I'm talking like not like a cutting edge or barely cutting edge team, right? Like if you want to have this achievement, you either need to like fill your vault like pretty much to the maximum every week, which is also horrible, or you need to have a dedicated raiding team that funnels you loot that clears the entire raid at like week 3 or something, or week 4, because otherwise you're just not gonna get this. Like, I have been raiding very actively, and I have been very lucky by getting the cloak and the neck in the vault, and I am still not there yet. I would need to buy BOEs in order to get the achievement, and I think that I'm one of the highest eye-level players, like 638.4 or something, you know? Like, it's just crazy how much you need these days.
Your crafted gear is 636 eye level.
You need to be like top 100, yeah.
I kind of need to wait for my vault to give me 639 myth track or pray I'm lucky in raid to get 639 in every single slot. And by the time I eventually unlock my gilded discount for my ults, the season is probably close to being over. So why should I be playing ults?
Season is already over.
The Harbinger achievement for gilded crest discount should actually be 636 eye level for all slots. Your crafting can naturally then get you to 636, and that ensures that everyone can get discounts on gilded for your ult. Alternatively, buff your crafting to max eye level. Why is crafting capped at 636? Buff it to 639. Crafting crest is too expensive, so every other...
All right, so about the crafting, right? Like, I understand why they don't want to give you 639 crafts. That makes sense. So I'm not really sure if I agree with like allowing people to craft to 639, because if you allow people to craft to 639, there's no incentive anymore for people to actually do mythic raids, right? Because you can just do all the crafting stuff and you'll be like biz-geared, which I understand that that's not really the way that they want to go about it. Like I appreciate like the crafting system being the way that it is. I just think that it's too expensive to craft, and the achievement with it being a little bit weird how that interacts. But like the 636 crafting system, I don't think it's necessarily too bad. It's just like the price of it that's bad. It's more than 49 hours for sure. Well, we can do the math real quick, to be honest. If you were getting 12 crests, right? Like how much did we need to get? It was like 1100. How much? Can somebody like wait? Hold on. Rekenmachine. Yes, bro. We're going to the Rekenmachine.
Buff it to 6.
Over here it is 1170. All right. So 1170 divided by 12, 97.5 dungeon. On average, in a +8, if you do not have active people funneling you, you would take about half an hour per run. If you like somewhat take the average, right? Because like you need to sign up to stuff, you need to get invited, you need to get to the dungeon, you need to wait for everybody to take a piss. They're not going to do that simultaneously because one person is going to take a piss, then he's going to wait for the other person to be back, then he's going to take a piss, and then when he is finally back, then someone needs to grab a drink, then someone goes to the doorbell. So before the key actually starts, you're 10 minutes in. So it's going to take about half an hour on average before you get your key done. So doing this by 0.5, meaning that you have about 48.7 hours of non-stop gaming and waiting for people to piss and grab their drinks and stuff before you're capped out on crests. This is a lot. Like, for the average casual player, this is like way too much. This is, even for me, as someone that is able to play the game as much as I can, this is pretty much 4 days of playing like the entire day if I play like 12 hours a day, which is like not realistic because, let me tell you, after 2 hours of doing +8s, you absolutely want to like jump off a rooftop or something. Like it's so horrible. All right.
You have a spark. However, to craft your 636, you need to do 7.5 keystones at +8 or higher to get gilded, which is 90 gilded crest, because you drop 12 gilded crest per completed and time key. That is just way too expensive. Why is crafting so expensive in terms of crest?
For smooth, it's one day.
Change the amount of crest.
Yeah, smooth days are 48 hours.
Go through 8 keys to fuel my bi-weekly upgrade. It's kind of a very slow reward system. The next thing is targeted slots and item upgrades. I think a lot of people enjoyed the Dragonflight Season 4 bullions and the old dinar system.
I agree.
Where
that was
I
a
have
great
a guaranteed
system.
way to get a certain item, trinket, or a slot upgrade. I understand you don't want to give loot out. Totally understandable. Some people think that raiding should have additional perks and incentive. I can totally see that. That's fine. However, when your season is absolutely dead, like if I were to pull up LFG right now and I search for keys between a certain range, you will see that it's way lower participation rate than usual. During the lull of a season, maybe you introduce bullions and dinars. This could also be unlocked when Hall of Fame is filled. So the season is kind of over already. People are kind of checking out. Would you rather lose players to play Path of Exile 2 or retain players in Mythic Plus? Blizzard, you decide. The other way to think about...
I mean, they're gonna lose people to PoE 2 anyways, right? But like, regardless of that, I think that the Bullion and Dinar system for the last seasons were absolutely massive. Because if you're a Mythic Plus player... okay, and let me go back a little bit. Because... I'm not a player that enjoys to sit through hours and hours of progression, especially whenever you need to join a good guild. For some of you that don't know, like I actually stopped raiding recently, and the reason was I just didn't want to be locked up for 24 hours a week of raiding. You heard that right. 24 hours a week of raiding. And then I will be geared in a fashion where I can actually compete for like the high levels of M+ decently early on. And back in season 4, I didn't need to raid at all because I had bullions. Back in Shadowlands, we had bullions. Now you are stuck having to pay like millions of gold for like the rare items because you just didn't loot them for like 8 weeks straight, and you need them in order to participate in M+. Because let's be real, if you're a boomy without a spy masters, do you think you're gonna be competing for the highest levels? Fuck no, of course not. So I definitely think the bullions and stuff are definitely something that they should look into to have like as a baseline mechanic in their seasons.
Targeted slots and item
Due to
upgrades,
breaking
we have
records,
vault
true.
tokens. Let us use our vault tokens for more than just sockets on our head, on our belt, and on our braces. Maybe
That could also
give
be
us
something,
vault
yeah.
token currencies where I can use my currencies to re-roll my vaults, maybe. I do not know, making stuff up. X amount of vault tokens, I can refresh this entire roll from Mythic Plus at reset. Or using a specific amount of tokens, I can target a myth track unlock on a specific slot. Maybe. Something
I
to
think that's a
about.
really interesting
Give people a
idea,
reason
yeah.
to do weekly keys. I think that's needed. M+ rewards needs improvement. We have talked about this. I know Ion Hazikostas made a statement about this. Season 2, you're looking at Mythic Plus rewards being changed. That's great. But the point is, and you probably already know this, between Portal unlocking at +10 and between that and the top 0.1% in Mythic Plus getting the title, we need more incentives to play Mythic Plus. Season-specific cosmetics.
I talked about this like before, and like the problem is like incentivizing people to do keys higher than +10 is catering towards like the higher end of M+, and like a lot of people are gonna feel left out. And one thing that Blizzard has shown to not want to do is leave out the casual community. Like they basically want to give the casual community all the tools necessary in order to be just as powerful as the higher end community, and it has been shown like repeatedly that they don't want to change that. So I'm curious if they're gonna do it. I sincerely doubt it, but yeah, there's a huge gap between like town or like portals and like the top community. So yeah, and about you, people that raid will be annoyed. Like I think that they have it like very well done with the PvP stuff. Like PvPers do not need to interact at all with any other side of content right now, pretty much to get their PvP gear. And I think that's a great system. I think that they should just like start treating PvP, M+, and raid as like separate entities that people just enjoy. Why is it that PvP is differently scaled from M+ and raid, but M+ and raid are similarly tuned? Because like right now, people are not enjoying the game because like one class works well in raid, but it's completely dog in M+. One class is completely insane in M+, but is completely dog in raid. Like, people are always gonna be upset about something or about the gearing from it, so just make them like completely separate tuning entities and let people get gear for that specific type of content. Like, make it scale to a certain item level in M+ only, for example, or make it scale to a certain item level in raid only. Like, why do we not have something like this?
Sets, for example, at 3000 score, or call it whatever. This is made up, right? You decide the score. It could be tiered, I don't know, 2800, 3000, 3200. It's entirely up to you. But
yeah, I think that could be something,
like
Modi.
challenge mode skins, season-specific rewards like pets, mounts. You are doing housing in a big way. Everyone's excited about midnight housing. You might as well give us like, I don't know, furniture in the future. Or something even simple, doesn't even cost you a lot of money, warband loading screens, weapon transmogs. All these doesn't cost you money. You just need an artist.
If it's cosmetic, then sure, why not?
It's really not that difficult. Now moving on to there being too much pain and punishment in Mythic Plus Season 1 for the War Within. Challenges, perils, penalty, I think needs to be revisited. The M+ community fears making mistakes more than ever. Each wipe is 1.5 minutes off the timer for the key. If you include the 5 times 15 seconds of penalty, plus the run back from the dungeon. In fact, 1.5 minutes is a bit too generous. There are certain dungeons, call it let's say Grim Patrol, where if you wipe on a certain pack, you're running back all the way from the start of the dungeon. That's too punishing. And because it's so punishing, people are very fearful of making mistakes, more so than ever, because it's so costly to make mistakes now. Everyone is more motivated now, more than ever, to invite meta specs only, because you want to maximize the amount of chances you time the key. You also will then gatekeep way more with score. You screen everyone's, I don't know, history of playing Mythic Plus.
So I think it's actually kind of interesting. I think that the punishment of wiping should be the run back more than like having a timer penalty. I think that it would be so much more interesting if they make the dungeons less linear and more about like being able to use smart mechanics to skip certain packs or specific routing that is going to be faster, but it's going to be more dangerous. So that there's a risk involved in dying in that regard, not in the sense of a timer. I think that the punishment of wiping to a pack, needing to run back, and basically having to reset it with like less cooldowns and everything is already quite punishing by itself. And I think it's not really something that fits well with the system, in my opinion. And like he's very right about the meta specs gatekeeping. Like it incentivizes people to completely lock out any spec that is not meta.
As though you're trying to date someone in Mythic Plus. This is kind of making the meta situation way worse. And because mistakes are way more costly, nobody wants to play the high stress roles. Tanks and healers, which by the way, I will elaborate way later on. I think the tank tuning was an absolute failure leading into the War Within. It was well-intentioned, you were coming from a good place, but it didn't hit the mark. The 15 seconds death timer is also way too costly because, again, it's punishing, scale it back maybe. You can have this a fix, but maybe look to scale it back. Speaking about running back and punishment, why?
It would have been good if it was only team content. Solo content, giving this big of a timer penalty is too much because you cannot control what other people are going to do. So for an unorganized punishment, this is like way too much in my opinion.
Why is graveyard spawn points not unlocked after each boss? It's really inconsistent. There's some dungeons where, oh, you kill the boss, you unlock the graveyard. It should just be kill the boss, new graveyard unlocked. As simple as that. Runbacks just feels bad. The idea of hitting the release button as a group of 5 and running back, it doesn't make the experience any better. It's not as though we're going to reflect on our mistakes while running back and go like, that was a mistake and I've learned from that.
Imagine that you're doing M+ and you're running back. Let me think about how I died here. Yeah, I did not receive a flash heal in time. Maybe I should have heroic leaped out a little bit. Dude, like
it doesn't help anyone. It just brings the mood down. Respawn point after each boss. Depletion of keys. Totally understand that we need depletion to give sticks in Mythic Plus. Without depletion,
I agree with that.
Some people have rightly pointed out, Mythic Plus would literally be you going into a menu selecting, I want to do a plus 13 or plus 14 or plus 15. And you just keep doing the same pool over and over and over again until you figure it out. And that might not be fun. I totally get that, and I think people get that. So you need depletion for stakes. And Mythic Plus is fun because there's like this risk versus reward thing. However, depletion can be improved. Lower keys like plus 12 and below, maybe you give people 2 or 3 chances before the key depletes. It could be 2 or, it could be more. The point is, maybe give people a certain amount of chances so it's not so punishing. You want to remove some of the punishment involved in depletion. For the high key pushers, maybe 13 and beyond, you can let them suffer because they are high key pushers. They love to suffer and that's why they're doing high keys. You can do the usual depletion, but you should look at the data for Mythic Plus. Where's the bulk of your population playing? You probably want to make it a bit easier on them. Depleted.
You know what would be interesting actually? Like I really like the idea that he brings forward here, but I think that there's a better way of going about it. I think that they could implement a system that depends on what your highest key timed is. Let's say that I timed a plus 15 Necrotic Wake, then everything 1 key level lower or more than what I have currently timed gives you an extra charge. So if I have already timed a 15 Necrotic Wake, a 14, 13, 12, etc, 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 does not instantly deplete. However, as soon as it becomes a 15, it will instantly deplete again. I think that could be something because it still incentivizes you to push for those higher key levels, but it's less punishing for you because you've already timed the key, right? Like you don't need a 14 necrotic wave, that it gives you an extra charge. I think that could be something.
Keys, more importantly, should still give usual Crest rewards. Why is depleted keys giving 5 Crest instead of the usual 12 Crest? That makes absolutely no sense. The key is already depleted.
I don't know,
People already
Ranks.
feel bad. And you're punishing people for getting less currencies on completing the key. It is no wonder everyone is leaving your keys. Nobody wants to stay after a wipe. Everyone just leaves. And
Yeah, I think that could also be a good incentive.
Because they have to find a new group, and God knows it's so hard to get into a group right now, especially if you're pugging. This cycle is just a vicious cycle. So make Crest drop the normal amount regardless of whether you deplete or not deplete. As long as you complete the key, usual Crest rewards should be baseline. You want people to finish your keys. Also, M+ is kind of too expensive. But think about it, right? M+ is kind of expensive. There's Flask, there's food, there's enchant, there's weapon oils, there's runes. And at the end of it, you get 50 gold if you don't loot any item. That is barely...
Bro, opening the chest, and you know, like it's actually funny. But at the end of a run, you know, you just imagine, you know, like you have this big chest after like a huge accomplishment. You finally timed the 15, and then you open the chest and like a big middle finger appears with like, here you go, here you have 50 gold, bro. Enjoy. Like, I just keep having that vision in my mind, you know, like this huge ass middle finger appearing out of the chest. Like, go fuck yourself, you know, like. I love it.
Enough to cover the repair cost. In fact, I'm losing money while doing Mythic Plus. So I don't know, maybe give a sweetener at the end, complete the dungeon, the NPC at the end of the dungeon gives a free repair. Something like that. Mobs recasting after AoE stops is a mistake. So the change that you made in the War Within is that an important cast is about to go off. If you stun or stop with crowd control, the mob simply recast the ability. In the past, in Dragonflight and before, you will put the mob's ability, the important ability, on cooldown. Let's say if I crowd control it. That was a way better system. The reason why it feels bad right now is that everyone knows there's an important cast coming, so everyone saves their interrupts. And in the event that someone doesn't track the interrupt tracker and uses a AoE crowd control, all the interrupts go on cooldown and the crowd control is used, guess what? It feels bad because the ability is going to be recasted and it's a wipe. Recognize that most of your M+ community doesn't use voice comms. I
think this is probably one of the biggest choke points right now that he's explaining in M+ in a whole. People panic whenever they see a cast going off. If they don't have an interrupt themselves, people panic and they will use any button that they have in terms of crowd control without thinking about it. Why? Because you, as he says, do not have any comms in a key. And instead of like actually helping the team using crowd control, like more often than not, it is actually just like an absolute downside to use crowd control. And punishing utility, in my opinion, is just a bad thing as a whole. Like, I like the fact that they're trying to like think about other ideas of not making crowd control too overpowered, but I think that they definitely went the wrong way with this one.
You want to encourage people to make friends and get into voice comms, that's great, but there are other ways to do so. I feel like you should revert back to the old system of a crowd control is equivalent to an interrupt, where it puts the mob's ability on cooldown, and you should also explore partial refund on interrupts. If I interrupt something, it whiffs. I don't need my interrupt back on use.
Let's see the tank tuning. Yeah, I'm curious about them.
Think about that. The other thing is the
tank tuning is horrible.
Disaster. When you first announced tank nerfs, a lot of people made videos about why this is such a bad idea, including myself. And there are some skeptics saying that Blizzard will get it right. But tank tuning has been an auto disaster.
You see the smell right here? That is the smell. Like, he knows it's not gonna be alright. People said it will be alright. He's like, no. I know what's coming, bro. That's not gonna be alright. I love it. Like that smirk over here. He knew what was up. He's like, I told you so, boys. I told you so. There's a reason I made that video. Oh, I love it.
And here's why. Let me quote you some of the language you used. You explicitly stated that you would want to smooth out the damage that tanks and parties will take. And tanks will take more damage overall, but shouldn't die significantly more often versus Dragonflight. The percentage of damage they take after mitigation from steady damage sources like physical attacks would be your primary objectives. Totally get that. I understand the rationale. Like I said, I think the tank nerfs are well-intentioned because tanks were pulling the whole dungeon and being immortal, and the party was struggling. I totally get the nerf, the
Except for
rationale behind
Baltic.
it. But again, if you read some of the things that you wanted, tank damage intake should be steady and not too fast. You want to smooth out the rate tanks take damage to reduce surprise or spiky deaths. Tanks will have strong answers to threats or periods of danger, but less sustained self-healing. And tanks will still have cooldowns or emergency self-heals, like renewal or impending victory.
In theory, all of these points are good. In theory. However, the way that they actually made it, not so good. Like, I think that some of these things, like the tank intake, damage intake, should be steady and not too fast. This helps a lot of classes. Taking away the spikiness of some things, I think like spikiness adds a variant of like some skill into it. However, it doesn't need to be a surprise. Like, it needs to be like something that is well recognizable, so that you actually know what's gonna happen. Not just be like how some bosses are right now. Because like I remember, I think it is in City of Threats, third boss. This boss just randomly pumps out a tank buster that has no timer. Like, these type of things, I am absolutely stunned by how a game can implement a tank buster in a competitive setting for some classes. That is just like, yeah, well, good luck here. Like, if you get hit, you die, you know? Like, there's no timer for it, so no indication, good luck. I cannot wrap my head around that, but yeah.
So let me tell you, your high-frequency tank busters across 5 out of 8 of your dungeons does not relate to the language you use here. It's almost as though the person who wrote these article, these languages, these paragraphs, is someone from the PR department, and the person didn't talk to the person from the balancing department. Because if you think about your 5 dungeons out of 8 dungeons in Dragonflight,
I love that.
The War Within Season 1, Grim Patrol, you have Flame Renders who are doing slashes, magical tank busters every 18 seconds, and there's 2 Flame Renders in certain packs. Then you have Molten Giants who do a Lava Fist every 15 seconds. If you try doing a key on like, I don't know, 13, 14, 15 and above, without mitigations, you just get 1 shot. Enforcers, they just stay in melee range, they gain stacks, and they just do increasing damage to a tank, and they absolutely demolish them. So again,
unless you're a Plot Warrior
language, tank damage intake should be steady, not too fast, but yet your high frequency tank busters is resulting in tanks dying significantly way more. Totally opposite from what you're saying in the first screen grab here. Then you have Stone Vaults, your Despoiler does Shadow Claw every 13 seconds. Machinist boss, Igneous Hammer every 12 seconds. City of Threats, your first boss, Subjugate every 13 seconds. Shadow Crown boss, Obsidian Beam every 25 seconds. Guardian mobs in Mist of Turnersive. Don't know why you changed the mobs in Mist of Turnersive, but they do Anima Slashes every 12 seconds. And there's 2 Guardians in certain packs.
You know, the funny part about this is like all of this shit is magical, pretty much. And this is why Plot Warrior was so good, especially also at the start of the season, because they were just able to deal with everything like super well in terms of like magical damage output with Spell Reflect. Not everything, but a lot of it. And some of these do a lot of damage back to the boss as well, like or to the mobs. Like Flame Render Slash, if you reflect this, you're doing a lot of damage back to the mob. And there's just a lot of classes that do not deal with this in the same way as like a warrior does. And I think like a very good example of this is Prop Paladin. Like Prop Paladin has a lot more issues with this, especially because they're so focused around doing a lot of damage. And they lack a little bit in that survivability area. But the way that they design it, but how much damage that you actually need in keys and the utility and yada, yada, yada. It's just like, yeah, figure it out. So like the only real class that I see that does very well against most of these things is just the Prot Warrior. And then everything else is just kind of, you know? The spoiler Shadow Claw can bug out if it uses it before the AoE, and it does twice between each AoE instead. And it's like every second. Oh, yeah, that's a cool bug.
And they stack the debuff.
That sounds completely alright.
What you're trying to say here doesn't relate to the design of your dungeons. And I think that needs to be revisited. I don't think the tank tuning hit the mark at all. Now, because of all these tank busters, LFG is now incentivized to bring healers with externals. You need to bring the meta healer, which is Disciplined Priest as of now. They have 2 pain suppressions, 2 externals for the tank. This makes the whole meta situation even worse. But given all these tank buster problems that is totally opposite from your initial tank tuning disaster kind of post, nobody wants to play tanks because again, every tank death is a wipe. It's at least a 1.5 minute off the timer. People get to blame the tank for breaking the key. Nobody likes to get abused, so nobody play tanks. Nobody play tanks. LFG groups cannot form. No Mythic Plus groups can form. Nobody gets to play. Everybody pays their sub for a queue simulator. Same problem with healers. Lack of healers in LFG. Tank healing feels off.
I think that one of the things as well that is a big part of this is that the tank balance is also just not very well done. Tanks are expected to always play the meta tank, and they're making it even more exclusive to in an already small pool. And it's just making it so much more worse. Like, if the tank tuning across the board was alright, and like all the tanks were somewhat viable, then there would be a lot more tanks around. But like, everybody is forced to play one spec because of, well, what he described earlier as well, with like the death timers being so punishing, and also just that some of these dungeons feel very awkward to play. So, yeah, it's Quazii. He's a very fun guy to watch. I really like a lot of his content. I like tanking all the dungeons except Stonevault and Siege. I think it's very much up to personal preference, right? But I can understand like how, from a tanking perspective, like not a lot of these dungeons are very fun.
There's no agency as a healer. If your tank messes up one global cooldown, as a healer, you have 0 counterplay. Your tank goes from 100 to 0, there's just nothing you can do. Also, every other pack having some form of party AoE damage. I don't understand what is the fixation with Blizzard's dungeon design such that you do not want Mythic Plus players to pull big. That is a very strange take. I think most people will agree that big pulls in M+ equals fun, but this is very deliberate and I do not know why. Then there's also high stress in playing a healer because a misplay into a wipe, again, is at least 1.5 minutes gone from your timer, and healers, just like tanks, can be blamed for breaking a key way more than DPS. And because you do not have enough tanks and healers, your DPS, you have too much DPS. They're all sitting in LFG, they're all in Donogal, they're paying a monthly sub, and they're just refreshing and trying to sign up for groups and getting declined, and nobody wants to pay a monthly sub to just wait for groups. So eventually people get bored and they quit Mythic Plus. And they quit the game, maybe. As a Mythic Plus lover, I've been here forever since BFA.
Dude, by the way, can we hold on? Can we just go back? I saw something happening on the screen right here. Can we go back and like appreciate this real quick? What this healer did over here? Like, look at this, yeah. He was getting morbid affliction.
They're paying a monthly
He's like running over. He gets a throw cleaver and he runs back and he hits it. Absolute giga chat, yeah.
I've been here forever since BFA. This is not sustainable. And I know you're listening. You've listened to us in the past. Hopefully you listen this time around. Then there's poor dungeon design. I don't understand who is picking the dungeons at Blizzard. When
I don't think anybody knows that.
Was announced for the War Within Season 1. Everyone started saying that this is a bad choice. Why is Siege of Borealis back? It was one of the most hated BFA dungeons. A lot of unfair mechanics, the hooks, the chains, blah, 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 yada, yada. You get it. Why is it that when you hear feedback from people that this is a bad dungeon, you do nothing to reverse that? I do not understand why. This fixation of bringing back
instead of like actually addressing that, they made us play even more count in Siege of Borealis for whatever reason. They made us, I don't know if you guys remember, but the tuning early on in the season for Siege of Borealis was that they thought that it was too easy and that there's too many mobs being skipped right now, and they didn't like that, so they upped the count requirement for us to almost need to do the entire dungeon. And this doesn't go for only Siege of Borealis, by the way. They did this for multiple dungeons. They want us to run one certain path. They don't want any variety in the ways that you can play the dungeon. For whatever reason, I'm not really too sure. They just want everyone to do exactly the same. No variety. They want us to play certain mobs because we have to. And you basically need to kill 95% of a dungeon in order to have enough count. It's the same with Necrotic Wake. Like, the Necrotic Wake changes, they don't make any sense. Like, they are forcing us to play the Skeletal Marauder right now. Nobody likes that mob, but they're forcing us to play it. They're upping the count of the Necromancers. For why? I don't know. Because nobody likes to play them. And now, instead of us being happy about it, they need to nerf the Marauder, or they need to nerf the Necromancers because they're way too strong at high key levels and healers can't keep up. It is like, every time they tune something or they do something, it just seems to completely be the opposite of what people actually want to do. And it just makes no sense at all. In general, I don't have a problem while tanking, but yeah, it's true that pressure on us and on healer is huge. There's not a problem, but I need sweat. I need to sweat blood to be alive most of the time, which is very stressful. Yes, and then you also have the issue that you're reliant on your healer to also keep you alive, which is making it even worse, because like it's not even just only in your hands anymore, but you also need a healer to also realize that you're in danger and do something about it, which makes it so much less fun. I don't know.
Popular dungeons versus popular dungeons is weird. If you pull up Shadowlands completion of keys, I can guarantee you more people did Halls of Atonement versus Theatre of Pain. But why is Theatre of Pain being brought back instead of the more popular Halls of Atonement in Season 2? Surely you have the data. Somewhere in the depths of the Blizzard office.
I would have really liked to see Halls of Atonement.
But you're making very puzzling decisions. On top of that, why is Workshop coming back for the third time in WoW's history? We already had Workshop coming back as a returning dungeon previously.
Dude, I swear I have a theory why Workshop is coming back. And I swear Blizzard loves mages and priests so much that they're coming back with Workshop because there's mind control tech with the squirrels, which is gonna make Shadow Priest or Disco Priest or Holy Priests once again mandatory. Because if you do not do the squirrel tech and they do not remove it, it's going to be beyond busted and everyone is going to need to play it. And I absolutely hate that. I absolutely hate it.
It's now coming back for the third time. I don't get it. There are more popular dungeons out there. You probably need to spend a bit more time thinking about what dungeons people like based on historical data. Also, for the love of God, the minecart RP in Darkflame Clef.
Oh yeah, that was horrible.
Live. Everything above is kind of condensation of thoughts, discussions that every day on stream we kind of have when we do Mythic Plus. But beyond that, there's also some food for thought. These are not suggestions, this is not direct feedback, but it's more related to something you should think about. Class identity is important, we get it, and that's why you want class buff to be specific to class identity, but make it more flexible to invite any comp in Mythic Plus. Bring back the ability for buff scrolls. For example, I don't have
that would be
priest,
huge.
I can bring a stamina buff via a scroll.
That would be very huge.
It's not as strong as a priest buff, but maybe make it, I don't know, 75%.
How about you just give everyone every buff, like by default, in Plus? Just disable it or enable it for everybody. Why not do that? Why even give people scrolls? Just let them instantly have the buff if they join the dungeon. Why not just give everyone like the buffs by default? You know, like level the playing field. The improved drums, like give people an extra action button to use Bloodlust. Why not? I don't really see why they wouldn't need to do that. They want to pick Theatre of Pain because they didn't want to have Curse to spell heavy dungeons again for next season for sure. I'm not too sure. Maybe. Healers were complaining the most. Yeah, but they nerfed tank survivability massively. So I'm not too sure if I completely agree with that. If I ever became the leader of the world, I'm putting all these devs in prison. What the hell? Yo, Alex, good to see you, man. You try Nox of Talons? They are damn good? I have no idea, to be honest. I have no idea. All right, let's go. Let's continue.
Of a priest buff. So that way people won't feel like they are absolutely needed to say, I need a Bloodlust class in my comp. Something like that. Bring back buff scrolls and bring back the improved drums from the past. You also want to spread out your class buffs a bit more, especially the S tier buffs. Like Mark of the Wild maybe shouldn't be a druid thing. Maybe the verse buff should be something that is more evenly spread out. I get class identity is important, but think about that. Then there's this whole big debate about solo queue that I don't want to go into in this video. There's plus and minuses, and I'm not decided on this topic either. I think solo queue fragments the community. There'll be people who only do premates and people who only do solo queue. Maybe you need separate ratings for them, but it would definitely kind of solve the problem of people not getting into groups. So it's something to think about as you work on Midnight and the remaining expansion.
So about the solo queue versus premade thing, right? Like, I understand, and this is something that a lot of people are asking for, especially the solo queue type of thing, There's one massive problem though. The way that the rating works in M+ makes it very hard to have a good solo queue system. Why? Because there's not enough players to be able to match to. If you look at other games like League of Legends, they're making use of like an ELO or an like they call it MMR and whatever. But basically, it's revolved around an ELO system because it's people versus people, right? Like it is not playing against the computer. So one team loses ELO and one team gains ELO. And depending by the average ELO of the groups, you can award certain amounts and like take away certain amounts. However, if you're playing against the computer, you do not have like those ELO implications, making it so hard to match with people that are similar in terms of skill. And whose key is it gonna be? Like these are all type of things that is gonna make it a little bit hard, and especially a lot of people that already have a pre-made group are not gonna want to invest time into also raising their solo queue rating. Because why would you if you're pushing for rank 1 on M+ in a general, right? Like why would you invest also in solo queue? And the other way around, like if you're rank 1 solo queue, why would you invest in pre-made? And I think it's just going to split up the M+ community even more. I like the idea, though, with like separate scores. And I think there is potential, but I don't think the player base is big enough in order to actually pull something off like that.
For the Warsaw Saga. So with the above, I really hope the War Within Mythic Plus Season 2 picks up. This is our favorite game mode, I think, for all of us across different MMOs. We can't really find something so special. Mythic Plus has so much potential. Let's make it the great game mode it deserves. If you found this helpful, if you enjoyed this video, don't thank me. Thank all the Patreon subscribers, all the YouTube members that you see on screen.
Thank you, patrons and members from Quazii.
For me to do what I love to do in life, which is to make videos like this for the WoW community. If you'd like to support us, link to our Patreon is in the description. As a special thank you, all our Patreon subscribers and YouTube members, they all get early access to all the free UI profiles and plater profiles we put out for the WoW community. Rest assured, always free to the eternity of time.
If you want his plater or his UI, make sure to sub to Quazii. I think you need to sub on his Twitch. Since we have watched his video, make sure to give it a like, you know? Like it's very good. It's a very good video. Let me leave a like as well, or leave a comment. Very good video. There we go.